Yeah, all right. Now you're making me nervous.
I'm not doing shit.
I know. Do something. No, I'm just kidding. All right. When I started.
Let's take a deep breath. That was shallow. You gotta take a deep breath. Full lung. Exhale.
Let my belly just pop.
What's
and then
wrong?
I get self-conscious that I'm like, damn, my belly's getting really big. No,
That's some diaphragm.
it just goes into
What's wrong with belly?
Anyways, what's going on, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Lemonade Podcast. Here at the Lemonade Podcast, we go by the saying, when life gives you lemons, we make lemonade. With that, we hope to encourage, inspire, and empower not only those of you tuning in, but also our guest. And today's guest is Toni.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks for being here. It's been a while. I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time. And I'm excited because, one, it's you. You know what I mean? Yeah. but two, because throughout other episodes and other guests, your name comes up. Mm-hmm. I make sure to do that because of the connection that we have with those people. Yeah. Iran, I'm sorry. And who else did we have? Graceful, Amari. Yeah. Everybody and that we somehow were able to connect and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And everybody gets shouted out, you know, through that. But somehow, I think maybe 2, 3, I would say 3 episodes at this point, you've been, you know.
Proud of.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's one of my biggest things is I love bringing cool, creative people together.
Yeah.
I get off on that shit.
with the Rope Collective, which we'll get into. Also, we do mention Leah, because you are partnered up with her, you know, with...
For Bondage and Bruise,
Yeah. Unfortunately, I forget to mention that part, the Bondage and Bruise things.
Yeah.
Just because I think Rope Collective, when it comes to Toni, like that's the first thing I go to.
Yeah. So I've been running the Rope Collective for a while, and you know, the Rope Collective is a sponsor of Bondage and Bruise, which are these events I've been doing with Leah. We partnered up, started our own little event planning business. But the Rope Collective, I started that like, I want to say it was like the August, like before COVID even. So it was like 2019.
Oh, it's still pretty fresh.
I mean, that's been years.
Yeah. In the making, and then 2019 you said, you know, let's go with this Rope Collective. As far as like the actual brand, I would suppose you would call it? Yeah,
so it kind of started, you know, I got my start with rope performance art, and some people refer to it as shibari, or I just call it like rope bondage as kind of an umbrella term.
Yes.
I got my start doing that when I was living in the Bay Area. So when I returned to San Diego, you know, I checked out kind of the things that were happening here, and there were some stuff happening, but no groups that were really like kind of practicing it in the environment that I kind of prefer to practice in.
Gotcha.
You know, I like to listen to R&B music and sexiness and dim lighting.
It's a whole mood.
And you know, it's very, I would say one of the most frequent pairings with rope and BDSM is more like goth, industrial, and stuff like that, which I think is cool, but you know, I've been in that environment for years, performing and going to events, and I really like a much like chiller, kind of vibey thing.
You know, I mean, it is sensual.
Yeah.
But it's not as like, I don't want to say, I mean, it's more slow paced. You know, like you said, it's chill. It's a chill.
Yeah, just a little more like relaxing and peaceful and stuff.
Relax.
So, so I started these little rope jams at my house. and they got super popular. So I started doing them at my friend Gabriella had a art gallery. It was kind of like an art furniture gallery called Take Me Home in Italy. She doesn't have a permanent space. She gave up the brick and mortar, but she does online art furniture trading. So she's definitely someone to
shout her
hit
out.
up. Yeah.
Gabriella
at Human of SD is her Instagram.
Human of SD on
Yeah, she's
Instagram.
super cool.
There you go.
And so we started doing some there and at her house and stuff. And again, it just like kept kind of, more people wanted to come. We wanted to do things more frequently, and a lot of people wanted to learn how to tie.
Right.
They wanted to have experiences, and so I had some friends I will shout out for sure in Chula Vista, Upright Citizen, Sonia and Jonathan. They're super sweet, and they have a vintage store on 3rd Avenue in Chula, and they had like this big back space that they weren't really doing much with. It was more like storage. So they cleared it out for me, and we started hosting events like once a week there. And we did that super consistently. We were having like sold out classes, sold out like performance events, and then COVID hit.
Boom.
Pause. Hard pause. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the team here, and this is something that I just kind of came up with, was 2020 is what I call the year of the lemon. You know, because the whole world experienced the biggest fucking lemon.
Right.
You know,
but it was interesting. We kept it going with like virtual classes, and that's something I'm really proud of with the collective. Is we've never had to completely full stop.
Yes.
We've never had to we've kind of been going strong even through that stuff, and it was really sweet over lockdown to be doing these virtual events and connecting with people from all over the world. Like we had people tapping in from Europe, Indonesia, Canada, Mexico. It was really neat.
Dope. Well, it was wild because Mike and I talk about this part where when COVID hit, it felt like it was more about a make or break moment for a lot of people, and some people did break, and they're still coming back from that, finding ways and whatnot. But some people were made at that, at that point in time. And your story, or what you're telling me now, is you found a way to continue, something that you're passionate about. Also to be able to share what you do and have that community, not only be there at a time where we all needed something, but also it became a worldwide thing. People that normally wouldn't know about it, they were curious, you were able to do that a little bit more, virtually. Like I said, you found a way. You're like, yo, I'm gonna just take up on this, go ahead and share it. And what's dope is, I said the Rope Collective, right? And to me, I'm like, so many people in that community I've come across, we've had some people on here, and because of you, and just how sweet you've been, and everybody just has so many good things to say about you. My experience with you has always been great, you know what I mean? We met during the pandemic, I think it was like the summer.
Yeah, I think we met like after lockdown, and people were slowly starting to creep out, and we were like, I don't know if we're allowed to do this, but we'll just,
and we shot, which was just dope. Still, I love those images because it caught you in your element, and just the way, even like almost like the voyeur look, where it was just you, your rope, and you were like self-tying, and there's one of the images that exists, and I'm sure that we could put it up on
make it the promo.
Yeah, I love it. It's just you like really zoned in on you. You see all your tattoos. It's just a black wall and it's carpet, and you have your rope, and I remember shooting with you and Emily.
When we did our outdoor shoot.
Yeah, when we did that,
and I heard from the tree.
Yeah, we were just hanging, chilling. No, but what I wanted to do with that was like, let me give life to the rope, Like, let me give it its own. And just because of what I saw too, like I said, with you, your interaction, even self-time, you know, like the rope becomes, you know, one. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's definitely like its own entity.
Yeah, and so I'm like, let me, for me, I was like, let me shout out the rope here. Otherwise, what would we be doing? But, you know, it was dope to capture those images. And then further along, later on, when you and I worked together with, you know, the people you tied and I was there to shoot, that was dope to be able to capture the ones for the people, because it was something that maybe they've wanted for a while to do, to experience, especially with you, like I said, because your vibe is really chill, and you talk about, hey, with the Rope Collective, and I'm guessing you want to bring that instead of this other side that maybe everybody's seen. You want to give it your space, your time, your energy, and you're like, I'm a little more chill, and you are. You're not like super like, I don't know, strong or animated maybe as much as I am sometimes, but you know, I like it because it really just it matches, you know, who you are. You know, it's not just what you bring, it's just who you are. You're like, oh, Toni's like super chill, and she brings that everywhere she goes, and I feel like you're able to create that space for people.
Yeah, and that's really important to me, because I think that is often the only way people can experience rope is kind of in a more showy, performative environment. You know, it's usually in spaces that are a little like overstimulation, sensory overload. And rope is an edge play. You know, inherently there's risk in doing this practice. So I feel that it's really fundamental to have an accessible space for everybody to come learn in conjunction with practicing and being really risk aware and conscious of you know, you're creating your own risk profile around it, and then catering your practice to what kind of risks you're actually willing to take on and stuff.
Especially with people who aren't experienced and who see that and want to experience. Because they don't just jump. You can't just jump.
I mean, even last night, you know, there was a lot of people asking me to suspend them, and you know, I don't think that people realize that it is a high-risk activity. You can get permanently injured, or, you know, in some cases, people have died. So it's kind of like skydiving or rock climbing or something like that, you know.
Or being on a podcast. No, okay.
Oh, I hope not. You about to take that mic to my
Everything around here is on your life, the mic's like.
Yeah, but you know, I think that it's important that we are super aware of these things before we go into them and try them out. You know, so I want to create a space where this practice is accessible and people are also kind of practicing and in conjunction also getting educated and knowledgeable so they can really mitigate those risks that are inherent with rope.
I mean, it's I think in pictures or even in film, you know, it looks pretty and some people are like, oh, I want that pretty experience. But if you don't know, especially going into it, I mean, something could come up, you know, and you're like, all of a sudden you're all tied up. And, you know, the vulnerability that exists there, at times it may be too much for people, I feel. I've never done that.
There's definitely, you know, physical risks as well as like emotional, mental risks, especially if, like, depending on who you're practicing with, you know. That's a big thing in the rope and BDSM community as a whole. And, you know, I have to disclaim and say that we are not impervious to the issues of the world at large, like people taking advantage or being predatory or whatever. But one thing that I really think is a beautiful aspect of this practice and art is that it in its ideal, you know, like when you are practicing ethically, it's very based in informed consent, setting boundaries, limitations, building a trusting connection with somebody, and really being able to like talk about those things very specifically and bluntly. I think that that's kind of one of the things that's powerful about it, is not only the like somatic experience that you're getting through being tied, but also this practice in being able to be vulnerable, being able to communicate with somebody, and it's for fun, it's for play, you know, and it's kind of eroticized in a way. Because I feel like a lot of the time when we are setting our boundaries and we are communicating and we are being vulnerable, it's like high pressure scenario. So I think a lot of us have kind of a negative association with doing those, like having heavy conversations or setting a boundary, because we're so used to only experiencing those things in a higher pressure scenario, like your day-to-day life. So being able to kind of create this like safer container where you can kind of make it into something playful and positive and sexy at times, really kind of changes your relationship to those experiences.
Yeah, and it's important, like what I hear is safe, and I love that, because going into it can be intimidating at times to some people, especially like I said, the people that have never seen it. Especially people that have never seen it, they're like, well, that's even almost taboo. Like, what are y'all doing here, right? But I know there's also aftercare. Right? I don't know if I'm right. Aftercare, right? You know, that's something that there's levels of it. There's the tying, and then there's aftercare, right? And I know that that's something that I didn't know about. So when I saw you do your thing, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. What's going on? And it was a moment between you and who you were tying.
Right, and you know, aftercare is important, and I think it's a great kind of symbol or display of how we treat these connections, you know, that they don't end when the rope comes off. You still are nurturing that connection and that intimacy and that, you know, that bond that you've created in the rope. Right. It stays, you know, so I think that's another one of the beautiful things about it. And, you know, I like to use the word safer, just because, you know, with rope, with BDSM, anything pertaining to this umbrella of practices, you can never be 100% safe, you know. Nobody can be 100% safe mentally, emotionally, physically, 100% of the time in every situation. And especially when you're opening yourself up to being vulnerable, and you are putting yourself in vulnerable positions, and, you know, also rope inherently comes with like some physical risk. I like to make sure that people know that we're trying to practice as safely as possible and creating a safer space to practice these things. But, you know, I think it's important to recognize that there is always risk involved. And
of course, It's, but you know, at the end of the day, just the experience overall, I feel like, once again, I have no idea, because I've never done it.
Maybe one of these days I'll get you all.
I'm like,
we could start with a little floor tie, see how that feels first.
Nah, but I'm like, what's going on? Or am I? Oh no, man, I might be the one. Like, yes, this is it. This is my thing. You know what I mean?
Or pretty much most of the reactions I get, I think that, you know, and I think a lot of people, they see suspension and they immediately want to, I want to do that, or I want to try that. And you know, when you do suspend someone, when someone's in hanging, the risk increases astronomically. So I always like to forewarn people, you know, like, hey, if you're not so into this thing that you're willing to like risk your bodily health and stuff like that, then maybe just do some floor ties or attach in some ways where you're not fully in the air. And you can still get the sensations without as much risk. But I will say that I think that one of the reasons that suspension is so powerful is because it is a practice that really forces you to be completely grounded in your body, in the moment, with the person you're practicing with. You know, I have practiced yoga for years, and every time I went to like Shavasana at the end, when we were supposed to like meditate and relax, I was always like faking. I was always like, white box in a white room, stop thinking. Stop, white box, white room, you know, like just trying to meditate, and it was so hard for me. I'm just like, you know, in my head a lot, so. Right, well, you know, being in rope for the first time suspended was like this really powerful moment where I was like deep in it, you know, and it was like the opposite. Instead of trying so hard to get into this like meditative state and barely getting in there, it was like I dropped into a meditative state and I had to come back to earth eventually, you know.
That's dope. Man, you found it. That's dope. One thing, I guess, actually two questions, and one of them is like, what has been your biggest challenge, you know, just overall in that journey?
Oh, my biggest challenge. Well, I will say like it's when I was like gonna come on this podcast and trying to think of what my lemons were and all of this, and even you mentioned earlier that I'm very I come across as very like chill and grounded, and I will say at this point in my life I do feel very grounded and stable, but the beginning of my adult life was quite the opposite. A lot of people are always surprised to hear about like some of the things I've been through, and trigger warning, I am going to talk about like some mental health stuff, but I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 20. Okay. And so a lot of that period of time when I was kind of coming into adulthood and basically being my own human and living my own life, it was really, there was a lot of struggle in there. And, you know, I was hospitalized like 5150 a few times. I did inpatient, I had to do outpatient. So a lot of people are always surprised when they hear that, because I don't, I think there's a lot of stigma. People think you're supposed to be a certain way if you have certain mental disorders or whatever. But, you know, I think that was really what I would say is kind of like the lemon of my life, where that was a period of time where it was really make or break. Like if I hadn't had the support of my family, like literally unwavering support, like they were like, sit your ass down and get help. And you know, so I think a lot about people who might not have that support network, that and how easy it is to just kind of like go in a downward direction, you know. But I think that part of that whole experience was kind of learning to sit and process with pain and struggles and things that I was going through, and kind of you know, now using those experiences as ways to really be like empathetic with people. I think that's what makes me, you know, good, like a good rope practitioner, as I'm very in tune with people.
Yeah, I think that's part of what you make the lemon in. Not only in rope, but also in general, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think it's because my experience with you, when you and I met, I was going through it like hella, like I was in it deep, and I don't know how much I shared, because I honestly don't remember, which is probably this defense mechanism, you know, but I know you were just really like, hey man, you probably need some time, like you need to, because I feel like you've seen that before, I've experienced it, you're like, the same thing, like you need to chill, relax, you know, find yourself too, like find what really is for you, what is it that you really want, and you reminded me a lot of that, you know, which it just brought that up when you're talking about what you're talking about, you know, from going from your experience, you know, being in that place to just now coming out on the other side and being able to help others, not only, you know, through rope, but just like I said, from my experience with you in general, you know, which is dope, you know, I feel like that is illuminating.
Yes.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that, you know, because, you know, you talk, we do discuss some mental health aspects of it in the podcast, just because of the fact that through the lemons, that plays a big part. How we react, what we've been through, all those things. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just kind of really taught me that we don't have to feel so kind of helpless or stuck in our situations.
Definitely.
I had struggle with suicidal ideation, and I kind of came to this point where I was like, dang, I can just kill the life I'm living, and do and focus on the things that do make me feel good and do feed my soul. And so I think it's so important that we talk about these things, because there is such a stigma around mental health, and especially in our society, in our country, we're very just you gotta create and do, and it's very labor intensive, and it can be really kind of put you in this place where you don't feel like you have any options, but you always have an option.
You do. I mean, like I said, when it came to the pandemic, the option is to just, okay, cool, that's it, it's over for us.
Oh, I was thriving. I'm like a beta fish in the puddle. I'm like, give me a puddle, I will thrive in here. Because when we were locked down, I was on this whole kick of what don't I know how to do that I would need to know if the world ended, if society collapsed tomorrow. So I had a garden. I learned how to make soap. Never held a gun in my life. I learned to shoot. I was
and what's funny is, like I said, you took it upon yourself, an opportunity to be like, look, I'm just gonna learn what I feel I need to, instead of just kind of giving up, or just going rolling with the punches, let life happen. You were participating in your life. I think one of the things too you touched upon was us. I'm paraphrasing. Just making the most of what we have, and you also said finding that fire within. That's something that we preach a lot here at the Limited Podcast. Is find that one thing, if not multiple things, but that one thing that really lights a fire, and just keep fanning those flames. Really go after that. And anything that you do, however you can, if you find a collective, a community where people, you fit right in, or even if you're by yourself, just work on that. Don't worry about the rest of the world. Keep working on that, because I always say, that right there may be the key to you just enjoying your life, period. Because life is going to happen no matter what. And like you said, just told us, as far as doing what you're doing to be able to gain, this knowledge on several things. It's hey, you're adding to that flame. You can do that, and it's just making your life that much better for you, because you're I'm enjoying my life right now. There's not much going on in the world, but you know what? And it's happening, but I'm being a participant in my life for me, and that's key. That's important. I feel like everyone should, at some point, like I said, just find the one thing. Fan the flame, keep fanning it, and then eventually you'll start finding people who are fanning their own, and even in the same space.
And I think also part of it is just really letting go of those societal expectations of what success and achievement and happiness are.
No, I mean it's really important, and though at times a lot of us do have to work that 9 to 5, because that's just, it's necessary. It's a must. But within that, like I said, still find that one, however size it may be, small thing, big thing inside you, and continue to work on that. It's just gonna make your life that much tolerable if you feel miserable, but it's also more enjoyable. I feel like there's this, like I said, there's energy. You have found energy that comes when you go after yours, something that you're passionate about. Because you still, you're dog walking, right? It's almost like the 9 to 5. Right? Or I'm mistaken.
I mean, yes and no. I am gonna probably, I'm applying for the studio this week, so
I'm super excited for that.
Yeah.
Right. But that's like to you, you're like, okay, I'm doing that, but I'm still gonna go. I'm going after.
But even the dog walking, I felt like I was winning at capitalism. You know, some people would look down on me like, "Oh, you're just a dog walker," and I'm just like, "But I'm still paying my bills like you are, and I get to hang out with dogs on the beach with the fresh air."
And somebody that'll walk those dogs because you keep I'm saying, look, it's a necessary service. You know, there's always something out there for someone.
Yeah, and I think also not chasing happiness, like realizing that happiness and suffering always ebb and flow. You know, you're always gonna go through having happiness, losing it, having suffering, losing it, and I think really what we should be striving for is like inner peace with ourselves and with the ebb and flow. Right,
and it's that. That thing of, like you said, society or someone else may say, this is what success is, this is what happiness is. It's like, no, find what's
what it means for you.
Exactly.
And I feel like rope really taught me that, is kind of the sitting and processing through things. And even if they do feel maybe uncomfortable or containing, or you might feel helpless in the moment, just kind of like sitting into it, breathing into it, and being like, this is gonna pass, and after it passes, I'm gonna feel incredible.
Because you made it through it.
And you really do. Like you get a very euphoric feeling after you go through any sort of struggle, whether it be physical or mental.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of practice. I'm learning that through everything, life right now. But I'm also, like I said, I'm a participant in my life now. You know, with even with therapy, where I'm like, oh crap. Well, now we're digging. We're definitely digging right now, and I'm like, I needed this because it, at least for me, it helps to, for lack of a better term, hey, this is what this is, which I wouldn't, before I didn't know what that was. It's like, identifying what these things are, feelings, emotions, like all that. And I was like, that's what that is? Oh, okay, cool. Now, and it makes it a little more like light and, more light into that. And I'm like, okay, now I understand it better. I can sit with it better, so that's dope.
I mean, I think everybody should do therapy, honestly. My undergraduate is in psychology, and I was actually just talking to a friend recently, and they were like, oh, well, I haven't gone to therapy because I feel like they're not going to tell me anything that I don't already know. And I was like, that's not the point of therapy. The point of therapy is not, if you have a therapist who's just like life coaching you or trying to tell you things like that, that's not like the therapeutic method. What it's really about is having someone from the outside, neutral, who you can share your thoughts and your feelings to. They can help you organize them. They can help you compartmentalize what you actually want to see as truth and what you want to throw away as just like intrusive thoughts, and really just kind of be able to like put words to your thoughts and your feelings.
Like I said, identifying what these things are, when you're like, I don't know what any of this is. It's a lot overwhelming, But I've been able to go through that, and I love it. I love the growth that I'm seeing. It is tough, but it's the work that needs to be done for me. And like I said, anyone individually, like, hey, do what's for you, the happiness, the success. What's success to you? Don't worry about what success is to anybody else, to you. Because if you go off of that, obviously you already know. You go off of success of somebody else, you reach their goal, not yours. And then what do you do with that? One question the other question I do have is, what was I feel like when it comes to rope and everything you do, what's the biggest misconception?
There's a lot. I would say very quickly, one of the biggest misconceptions is that you gotta be like skinny or a certain body type or flexible or strong. I'm big on modifying rope to work with everybody. So that's one of the misconceptions.
Yeah.
And then I would say the biggest misconception is that it's always sexual. You know, people see it and they immediately are like, oh, this is a weird sex thing.
Yeah. No, yeah,
And
exactly.
it's interesting because it's though it can be erotic and sensual, and in some cases sexual, you know, it's not mutually exclusive though. You know, it can be. There's many different ways that I practice. You know, there's so many people I practice with completely platonically. There's also people that I will be a little sensual or erotic with, but we do not get sexual. And I think one of the beautiful things about rope is it really breaks down our idea of what sexuality and intimacy is. Because I think, you know, again, in society we're really taught like, okay, you partner up with someone, there's your intimacy, there's your sex, like there's your, you know, and then even the way that we typically have sex with each other as humans is very like, you know, we're getting to the climax and then we're done. And like, you know, it's a little more black and white, I guess, you know. And I think one of the wonderful things about a rope practice is you're able to kind of like have intimacy and physical touch and sensuality, and it's not necessarily sexual. I think it's really kind of changed my whole perception of those things, and you know, allowed me to really have fulfilling, intimate experiences with people who aren't sexual partners. So yeah.
Well, you know, like I said, a lot of people look at something that's new or just somehow they're just not open to things, and I think they look at rope and shibari or rope bondage, all that, and just like you said, it's a weird sex thing. And it's like, no, there's a lot more there's a lot more that goes into it. I don't want to say I was one of those people. I was just like, oh, to me it was just like what I saw immediately. It wasn't like, oh, there's a prep, there's the boundary talk, all these things, communication during, before, during, after, and then there's the aftercare. And I was like, there's so much. And everyone, like you said, everyone's different body type, emotional level, or mental, level, and all that, which is dope because it's really inviting to anyone.
And and if you think about it, it is the perfect, I want to keep it very inclusive and accessible, especially for people who might be like asexual, like they just aren't sexual people. And so they don't get to experience intimacy and physical touch. And so rope is a beautiful way that people who identify as asexual can have those experiences, and they don't have to be pushing outside their boundaries or, so.
This is dope because it's like, yo, come on.
Yeah,
everyone's
exactly.
Accepted, and I love, like, I tell people, it's a good time to live now because I feel like there's so much acceptance. Like, it's okay. Like, you're good. You don't have to fear being who you want to be. Whereas just before it's like, oh, you're asexual? Like, oh, that's weird. Like, what do you mean? How do you? So you don't understand it. You've never seen it before. Now we're opening that dialogue and just that space for people. Like, yeah, it's cool. Like, experience this. You may or may not like it, but if you do, great. And trust me, it'll be an experience.
And I mean, humans are so. I say this all the time that perception is reality, and we all have different perceptions. So we're all living in a different reality of. What is normal, what is abnormal, what's right, what's wrong, that changes from country to culture to person, like it's different for everybody, and I think that one of the beautiful things about the human experience is being able to find ways that we can appreciate those differences and uplift those and honor, where someone's at.
Because you're human.
Yeah.
So, like, I love that you said that, the human experience. Everyone's unique. you know, and they all bring something. And if you know, I feel like you shut them out. It's like you get to miss out. You do, you know, and then people are kind of like, oh, shelter themselves, like, I'm not accepted. And it's like, oh, we really missed out on someone who could to you mean everything, and you don't know that because you're like, oh, you're weird. Or some BS like that. Yeah, nice. Real quick, the last question we have.
Okay.
All right.
I'm ready
And
for
this
it.
is the
Buckle
one that
up.
everyone's been waiting on is, would you rather be a ninja or a pirate?
Whoa, that's heavy, bro. Cause like both those would be cool.
It would be.
I've always wanted a katana.
Oh, okay.
But also I think pirates are like really rad.
Well, hybrid?
I know this is hard, man.
Yeah.
I will say maybe I would go with, I gotta say pirate, honestly.
Pirate.
Yeah, I gotta say a pirate.
In my head,
you'll get
it makes sense just because if you're like on a ship, ropes.
Yeah,
Toni.
see, I could still do my rope thing.
Right.
I could
On a
be.
ship,
I've
imagine that.
kind of always wanted to be a
There you go.
pirate, honestly.
There you go. Perfect.
And I have this great. See, I'll never write it because I never have like the time and motivation to sit down. But I have the most ingenious idea for like a horror series, books, movies, where it's zombies versus pirates.
Okay. I
You
like
know,
it.
like the pirates, they're out to sea.
Yep.
They come back to land. Zombies everywhere.
Zombies
Now it's zombies versus
Sure.
pirates. Right?
I like it. I mean, it sounds like a Netflix. Nice.
Somebody hit me up. I'm trademarking it right
Yeah.
now. You
Zombies
gotta
versus
pay me,
pirates.
but if you want that idea, let's talk.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, real quick, I noticed your shirt. I love it. Thanks for wearing it.
I love a good theme.
Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for your energy, your time, and your story, and just for being here. You're the best, and just keep doing your thing. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, brother.
Man, that was hot. Oh, what is this?
Simply lemonade. It's your ice.
I don't know. You tell me when. Okay.
No, you did good. You did great. I was like, man, where do I take it?
I know we did it.
Ah,
I know it's gonna be pirate because of the
Because of the
rope.